Hey guys, welcome to Young and Hungry. I'm Steve Busby.
I'm Nat Bush. Happy to have everyone joining us again. We're going to get into the MLB, some news surrounding the league and on this episode. So let's just kind of get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the new apparel deal that's starting in 2020. So Under Armour was slated to take over the uniforms for 2020. Conversations actually fell through, and Nike has picked it up. So Nike's going to be supplying the MLB uniforms for 2020. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the apparel deals are dog eat dog. It seems like, somebody falls asleep at the whale. These things happen quickly, just kind of like with Vail Resorts and how they ended up getting Park City and Canyons. Canyons forgot to renew their lease and Vail swooped in and picked them up. I think it's something similar like this. Like they just saw an opportunity. Like, why wouldn't you want to grab the MLB business? And,
Exactly.
Nike is obviously the most savvy in the industry when it comes to that.
Yeah, and when it comes to uniforms in the professional four space, is big four in America. Nike now they're making the NBA uniforms, they're making the NFL uniforms, and now they're making the MLB uniforms starting in 2020. So they're going to have 3 out of 4. The other one is Reebok, who actually makes NHL.
Yeah.
But NHL is kind of in the smaller niche market versus...
And Reebok, as of the last 10 years, kind of fell a little bit into the background of people's minds.
Definitely.
So Under Armour's kind of taken that. When you think of the big 3 in apparel, you obviously got Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas. And Adidas making a big push in basketball. I think, but obviously not owning the top of the food chain, but their push for that creator division of influencers and the next athlete coming up, I think is a really strong play for them, and has certainly served them well.
Yeah, and I think it brings a good point about Under Armour being in the top 3, and this could have been a good avenue for them to get that national exposure. Makes me wonder why the deal fell through, and I would imagine it has something to do with all the structural reorganization and the layoffs that they had at upper management a couple months ago.
Yeah,
probably some of those guys were negotiating the deal and no longer with the company, so they had to just restart from square one. Nike,
a lot of people from their marketing department are either with new companies or in new roles altogether. So a lot of restructuring, I'm sure, interfered. I mean, we saw it firsthand on a couple things ourselves. So, Under Armour's a fantastic company to work with, and I'm sure they'll get everything right here. But that's a missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Nike just expanding on their already, being the market leader and just expanding more on top of that.
Right.
So some quick naming rights deals that happened in the MLB. The Giants renamed their park AT&T. It's now going to be Oracle Park, which kind of expands Oracle in the Bay Area with having Oracle Arena.
Isn't Oracle Arena disappearing? Or
it is, yeah. They're moving. So I think they're trying to capitalize on that. And
they're doubling down on actual San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
So that Bay Area movement's still huge. Obviously, Oracle has been the big name in naming rights in that community. Doubling down on baseball is big for them.
Yeah, definitely. And then another one, Miller Park, where the Brewers play, is going to be changing to American Family Insurance Park in 2021. That's an interesting one for me. It seemed like, Miller Park, them being the Brewers, the amount of beer culture around that city, it seemed like a no-brainer. But again, must have been one of those things.
Do we know the length of that deal? How long that was Miller Park? I mean, obviously, it makes all the sense in the world.
I'm not entirely sure. No.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. But that's one of those names that you see kind of like Coors Field here in Colorado. You don't really ever suspect that would change. But interesting to see nonetheless. And American Family Insurance has seen massive growth in the last decade. Definitely. So no surprise that they're stepping into that arena.
Yeah, they've been very active in the sports space and sponsorship partnership space overall. So not surprised about that. And then the last thing I want to cover about the MLB is the MLB Players Association and the MLB going through some potential rule changes. So I'm going to just run through them. I want to get your thoughts on them. So the universal DH, the 26-man roster up from 25, a 20-second pitch clock, a 3-batter minimum for the pitchers to face when you come in the game, having a runner on second base after the 10th inning for spring training and all-star games. So I think that's something that they're going to try and speed up the game and maybe eventually, implement in the actual regular season. And then the last one is reduction of mound visits from 6 to 5. So it seems like the overall theme of this is modernizing the game and speeding it up.
Speeding it up. Absolutely, it's about speeding it up, and this goes back to an early conversation we had when we started the business. One of our first clients that we were working with was the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball, and they were the ones that coined the pitch clock, which sped up the game rapidly. It significantly reduced the time of the games, and that was one of the angles that we took with that property. Was it's an opportunity to get in with the future of baseball and what's that next chapter. So Rick White, their president, was very adamant about instilling some of these changes in the pitch clock, being able to speed up the game so much. I think that's the consistent complaint when it comes to baseball is these games take forever. My dad used to joke that it's like watching the grass grow. I don't agree with that stance, but the reality is when your team's bad, it can feel that way at times. So
definitely. And I mean, the length of these baseball games with the shortening of people's attention spans and the amount of stimuli that we have going on, it seems like a no-brainer for MLB to try and modernize the game and improve some more offense, with the universal DH. A lot of these rules kind of go against the purists of baseball, but I think they're going to have to compromised in some regards.
Well, you got to grow. You got to grow with the changing times, and I do think that obviously, if they do instill the pitch clock, that's an obvious timepiece partnership opportunity for. I would imagine it would come in at the league level rather than at the individual team,
like an Omega or any of those watch companies.
Yeah, I can't see Rolex playing in that space. I think they're more tennis and golf.
It could be like a Fitbit or someone of that nature, even though Fitbit's probably going for more techies with their partnerships with basketball.
It could make sense. I think Omega makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And they're also the biggest spender in the sports sponsorship space already, right? So it wouldn't be anything that's either. But
the demographics make sense there. So that's a clear partnership. What were some of the other ones that you ran through there? There was one, the five mound visits instead of 6. That will do a little bit to speed up the game. It's not every game that you're getting 6, so I don't see a massive change there. I could see that getting adopted easily.
Yeah, the other one that kind of stood out to me was the 3-batter minimum for a pitcher.
Okay, yeah, I had a question when you said that. So that literally means you can't come in the middle of the inning and strike out 2, or you're saying he has to stay in for 3 batters?
He has to stay in for 3 batters.
Love that.
So no more.
Some guys are going to get rocked, and you can't take them out of the game. It's awesome.
So potentially, instead of bringing in the lefty for 1 batter and slowing down the game, got to stay in for 3 batters. So potentially a whole inning. I'm curious.
It changes the strategic decision for the managers.
Totally does. A lot of these impact the manager a lot. With the
I would say that's more disruptive to the game than changing even the pitch clock. Because I mean, you're talking about speeding it up a little bit. So with the pitch clock, or I guess what I'm wondering is you can't step off the mound. Or you have to do that in under the 20 seconds.
It's probably you just have to do that under 20 seconds, or else
or you get a ball.
Yeah, I'm not really entirely sure how that works. I know Jonathan Papelbon got a time violation a couple years ago, and I think it is just a ball.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I want to unpack that a little bit more and understand the implications.
And again,
but
all these rules are just potential. They're just discussions at this point between the Players Association and the league. So none of these are concrete, but it's gonna be curious to see which ones actually.
The universal DH is, I think, an obvious need for the game. Having the pitchers in the NL bat is it's for the most part a wasted at bat and a free out.
Yeah.
It's like playing in 2 different styles of baseball, obviously. But again, the classic fan of baseball is going to argue, why would you change it now?
Exactly.
There's going to be a lot of opponents of changes. There always are, and there's going to be a lot of people that are for it. I think if it's all surrounding speeding up the pace of play of the game, it's only going to help.
Yeah, I would agree. So that kind of wraps up what we have in the MLB. One last trivia question. What's the first team to use DH, and what decade was that in?
The Yankees. Is that correct?
What decade was it?
I'll get let me get the first half right. I'm going to imagine the decade was the 50s.
It was the 70s, and the Boston Red Sox were the first to do it.
It was close. It was one or the other, right? It's got to be the Yanks or the Sox.
Yeah, but you're about 20 years off.
A little off on the decade. All right. Well, again, guys, as always, we're going to try and get some more guests on the show. We got another episode coming at you later this week with Greg Clifton from Omaze. Looking forward to having him on. If you guys have any interest in being on or commenting on any of the topics we're discussing, we're going to be doing these things every day. So look forward to having you on, and thanks for joining us today. Look forward to the next episode.